Countdown on to the NFL draft here on Birds 365. McMullen, McDonald, and Mike Gill from down the shore, 97.3 ESPN, host of the Sports Bash. And we always appreciate it when he jumps in, and he does so every single Wednesday. Mr. Gill, today, tomorrow, Friday, how many of the next 3 days are you going to make McMullen show up on your show to balance the scales for your appearance here on Birds 365?
Just today and tomorrow, the misery will not have to have. Although Friday is the fun day where you get to finally talk about what happened.
Yeah, finally get to talk about Bijan coming.
What are the betting odds? Have him going to Philly as the second or third?
I think it was third. The last one I saw was third behind Atlanta,
Houston,
and Houston. Which I don't see.
Houston is the second pick in the draft. That would seem to be very.
Houston is also the 12th pick in the draft. That may be where they're sliding.
Houston is also one of the dumbest teams in the NFL, so they're in the conversation for doing anything. So you're out on the porch. It's chilly today, Mike.
Yeah, I'm rocking a little hoodie out on the porch. I had my coffee
on. He's fine, looking good. What does it say on the hoodie? Give us the advertising.
BFA Sports. I do a lot of play-by-play for them. I do a lot of live. I did 6 baseball games this weekend over down at the Coaches versus Cancer Classic. So I call a lot of their play-by-play.
Nice. By the way, you get any get my wrestling picks in? Any CM Punk news? Because he's creating a lot of news. Any Mike Gill tidbits on CM Punk?
He's not answering my text these days, right? He did text me not too long ago randomly because he was in Atlantic City calling it. They had a fight here. I think they have a fight coming up in AC soon.
Boy, I miss big AC fights, man. That used to be great.
I know.
The big fights.
Hey, believe it. Well, yeah, he's the color analyst for CFFC, the regional MMA promotion, and I used to do their play-by-play, so that's how I know, Phil as I would know him.
All right, well then
he's name dropping.
I know we're getting off the track, but what is Phil doing, McMullen or Gill? Where do you hear it? I'm not hearing anything on CC.
Well, he was he showed up at the WWE
showed up at Raw,
the other night. And he got thrown out by security. I guess he wanted to try to talk to Triple H about. Yeah. I mean, if you believe these, dirt sheet rumors, he was trying to have a conversation. He does have a contract with AEW, and he is supposed to have a new show that they created essentially
Saturday night
around him.
They have to keep him and the children apart. They have to keep him apart from the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. They
created a show for him to appear on Saturday nights because he still has a contract. And apparently the Warner Brothers Discovery management wants him back on TV because obviously he's a mega draw for them.
Yeah, he's their biggest star. Star.
I'll text him after this call, McMullen. I know that he lives in Chicago, but he works out in Milwaukee a lot. So he'll do a lot of training in Milwaukee. Yeah. Now, I don't know that he's training for anything. He used to train for MMA.
He's got to get back in shape,
But he has to get back in ring shape, I guess.
All right, can I make one other point before we get into the draft with Gill? The whole Warner Brothers thing, I'm watching way too much Turner these days because they got both basketball and hockey playoffs and the crossover promotion and everything. If I never see another commercial for the Pimple Doctor. I got to see these stupid commercials when I'm watching hoops and hockey. No, I don't watch the Discovery Channel. I'm sorry. I have no desire to ever watch the Discovery Channel. And I'm sure
you don't like Pimple Popper, MD?
Pimple Popper, Coach. Yeah. No, those those commercials kill me.
The Burger King commercials. I shouldn't say
you watch the show?
Yeah. I watched the Pimple Popper, and they have a new show on after for a urologist who goes down below and tries to fix you.
You got too much time on your hands, Gill. You can't have that many hours in a day. You can't be as good as what you do and watch those stupid shows.
Jody,
and watch wrestling, too. How the hell do you do it 24 hours in a day?
Listen, I am no wrestling hater. I miss watching the genre. I don't have time for the wrestling anymore because I had to give up something. And
Popper over wrestling. I'm sorry.
You got to give
Your
up.
man card has just been discarded.
I would like to go.
When McMullen, go on his show this afternoon and rip up his man card. If he's
watching the
Pimple Popper and not watching wrestling, he doesn't deserve to have a man.
That's a bad that's a bad job by you.
I would like to go back to. I would like to get back to wrestling. Unfortunately, I watch Phillies, Sixers, and every other sport all the time. I've got to say, all right, you can have the remote for a little bit.
Wrestling's basically on every day, so I have no problem with people cutting out certain days or certain. But if it's Pimple Popper versus Monday Night Raw or SmackDown,
Pimple Popper is on. Pimple Popper is on Wednesdays after AEW. I think.
DVR watching Pimple Popper and
it is a fascinating watch, though, man. It is.
By the way, you got to watch your buddy. You got to watch. You got to watch your buddy Phil when he's got his new show. You got to support your buddy.
I do DVR when he's on, and. I DVR some stuff. I try to keep up. You're right, John. Too much. There's too much going on.
Yeah, too much. And there's too much going on. All right, we'll get it back we got to get it back on track. The NFL draft. So you and I have talked.
A little homage to my man Harry Mays. Let's get it back to the Eagles.
Get it back to the Eagles. Get it back to Bijan with the Eagles. We're closing in. We only have to talk about this for a few more hours now, Mike. Howie Roseman. I know you tweeted it out there. Nicole Lynn is Bijan Robinson Day. We can go that angle now. He wants to play. He said he wants to play with Jalen Hurts. Everybody wants to play with Jalen Hurts. Buda Baker wants to play for Nick Sirianni. Why do people make so much of this? It's great to have players that want to play with your players or your coaches. That's always a great thing, but that's not going to have an effect on the Philadelphia Eagles, is it?
No, and I would almost throw back to you is why do we feel at the national level there is so much buzz? I mean, who is putting out there and why is the messaging so strong about this? Now, today, I did see something that, hey, it would be totally out of character, which we've been discussing for a while, that it would be totally out of character. It just seems to be more of a fit. But oddly, and he even acknowledged it, Robinson, right? He has acknowledged that he continues to hear the buzz about him to Philadelphia as if, man, this is, of all the draft rumors that are out there, this one's now maybe in our market. I don't know if you're in Seattle right now, if you're hearing a lot about Bijan Robinson going to Philadelphia, but it does oddly seem like this has been a discussion to the point where, I've had listeners email me and say, like, listen, because a couple of years ago, there was an early mock draft, really early in the game, like say January, that had the Eagles taking Kyle Pitts. And it was like, whoa, would the Eagles really take Kyle Pitts? He ended up going number 4 to Atlanta, so they didn't have a chance.
The Eagles would never
take Eagles did like Kyle Pitts,
right? But you were like, wow, would they take a tight end? I forget where they were picking in the draft that year. But so the guy emails me, and he's like, hey, a couple of years ago, you just kept saying Pitts, 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 and it never happened. You're doing the same thing. And I said, well, this one has more of a reality to it than I think the Pitts did, mainly because the only reason I think that this has as much credence as it does, whether that's 1%, 2%, or whatever, is because they have an extra pick. If this was their only pick in the first round, I would think that discussion would be minimal at best. But in my mind, because of the fact that this is somewhat of a luxury pick for them, they have to at least be considering it at minimally 1% of, and I go back to, guys, if you set your board up and you draft best player available and he's there, he has to be the best player available on your board. Period.
Yeah,
point blank.
By the way, real quick, Pitts was the Devontae Smith year. So that was the year the Eagles went from 6 back to 12 and then back up to 10. Either way, they were never going to get Kyle Pitts, but they did like
stayed at 6. They wouldn't have gotten Pitts because
he went 4 that year. He went 4.
Yeah.
And by the way, I debate and or refute your use of the word luxury. this is not a luxury pick for the Eagles. When you're at number 10, you can't be using a luxury pick. And again, everybody's got their own definition of luxury. Mine is, well, you don't really need him. He can sit for a minimum of a year. Oh, no, you picking a 10th pick in the draft. You expect the guy to step right in and play. And the fact that they got 2 picks isn't really a luxury for me either, because they don't have a 4th, a 5th, or a 6th. I think to have a luxury, you have to evaluate the entire draft capital you have before the draft starts. And I don't think they have a luxury pick. I think they need. Johnny keeps telling us that they can't start the season with the defense that they have in place right now at linebacker and both safeties. So where does the luxury come in? No, they have to upgrade at several positions.
Well,
and if you're upgrading, that's not luxury.
Right. You're looking at luxury in that facet. I'm just saying this was a pick you didn't have. This was not your pick. You didn't earn this pick because you sucked. You got this pick because you swindled. That's the difference.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think the luxury part of it for me, and again, we all have definitions. This is a launching point. They didn't get to 10 on merit, as you mentioned, Mike. They're not a bad football team. They're one of the best teams coming into, even with the attrition in the offseason. And they're at a position to where they can go get the player they want if the cards fall correctly. As I said, I think Jalen Carter is the player they want. I don't think he's lasting till 10. I think Seattle's going to take him at 5. But if Seattle goes a different direction, and he starts to fall a little bit more, I think it's a chance for Howie Roseman to seize the moment that he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
You believe that, or saying no, he's going to trade down, he's going to take.
No, Bijan, I believe that, John, is if he's at 7, I think it's the kind of the point of the line of demarcation. If he gets to 7, that's when you say, all right, it's fallen too much into our lap. We now have to make our move because it's probably not going to get all the way here. I am, you talk about Jalen Carter and in that 5 spot. They're very interesting, Seattle, because they definitely need pass rushers. They need someone. That's why Houston is so interesting at 2 and Arizona at 3, because if Arizona gets out of that spot, you would imagine that somebody wants a quarterback, and that would mean another defensive player falls. And now if Houston, doesn't take a defensive player and they go quarterback, that would be another defensive player that falls. Now you have the possibility of 3 defensive linemen getting past number 5, or at least 2 getting past number 5, and that would really open up, I think, a lot of phone calls at the witching hour, as the Mike Francesa would say.
All right, so I'm going to ask you to beat the clock here, Mike Gill. The NFL draft is scheduled to start 8 p.m. on Thursday night.
It's too late, by the way. Can we just kick it back an hour? Just 7 o'clock. What? 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they want those West Coast viewers at home, so that's why they have it at 8 o'clock. I'm with you.
The Rams don't have a pick in the first round for like 10 years.
We look at it our myopic East Coast vision.
I certainly do.
They do take in the entire country when they schedule these things. But 8 o'clock, commissioners got to come out. Both ESPN and ABC and the NFL Network have to do a hey, how are you? So let's say they start the clock at about 8:10. Carolina should be ready to just hand in their card, but that's never the case. 10 minutes between picks. What time do the Eagles go? If they're you and John seem to be leaning, they're jumping up and making an earlier pick. I say there's a better chance they trade back than actually trade up, but I'll stay at number 10, and that's when Howie's going to pick. They're going to get this pick in before 10 o'clock?
I would imagine so, yeah. I mean, you figure 6 picks should take about an hour, and that would mean you would get your pick right around 9:45, somewhere 9:50, in that range if you stay at number 10. Now, if you trade back, then you're out.
That's why I'm asking. Give me the time. I need it to the minute. When will Roger Goodell announce the first Eagle pick, Mike?
All right, 9:42. There'll be a trade up.
There you go. I'm writing that down.
There'll be a trade up, and then you're right at the number 8 spot. You're at the number 8 spot, and you're in that area there. And you're at around 9:42.
How about 8-11? They trade with Carolina to go up and take Bijan Robinson, number 1 overall. What are the odds of that?
0. I am talking myself a lot more into Paris Johnson Jr. I don't know that he'll be there, but the concept of he has played guard, he has played tackle, so he has versatility, which Skronsky, a lot of people don't think he could play tackle. Tackle. He's played tackle in college, but he projects as a guard. And the Eagles, Lane Johnson's got 2 years. Kelsey is probably going to be on his last year here.
We've been saying that forever.
Yeah, but at one of these points, they're going to have to acknowledge it. Cam Jurgens, they drafted last year thinking he was going to play now. So I'm starting to lean more towards Paris Johnson could be the guy that we haven't talked a whole heck of a lot about. Skronsky's name has come up a lot, but I think Paris Johnson will probably be the most likely player if he's actually on the board at that point. Now, that's the next question. Yeah. Will he get there?
Yeah, there's a lot of late smoke about Paris Johnson going number 3.
Yeah.
So he's really getting some late.
The whole Arizona thing, if Arizona stays in that spot, I forget. Somebody tweeted this out last night that I was reading. That guy had so many characters in this. How many do you get now? If you pay for the $8,
I think if you pay for it, you get
as many as you want. My God, he had a book. But his book was, Murray apparently has been lobbying for offensive linemen like the last 3 drafts, and they keep taking defensive players who all stink, and their line is like the worst in the league.
Bad. It is bad, yeah.
So maybe John Gannon, who's been in Philly for 2 years, says, you know what, maybe I should follow their model and push to get my quarterback protected here.
Yeah, it's possible. That's one of the things about this draft, because you have so many new GMs, new coaches at the top of the draft. You don't really have a feel for how they're going to do business. So it makes it a little bit more uncertain. And for the Eagles, I think it starts with quarterbacks. For the longest time, it was going to be, there's going to be 4 quarterbacks in the top 9, and that was going to help the Eagles get a good player. Matt says, you mentioned some of the names, Carter, Anderson, Wilson, Skronsky, Johnson, right there. That's 5 guys, 4 quarterbacks. That's 9 picks. Then you're in the Bijan category, the Nolan Smith category, all that kind of stuff. In theory, you would get a good player. Now, I don't know too many people that think 4 quarterbacks are going to the top 9 anymore. How many are going, Mike Gill?
Well, and that's where Houston gets interesting, because, you just penciled them in to take a quarterback, but keep in mind, they also have the 12th pick. Do they have a guy at 2 that they love way more, or are they like, you know what? We like all 3 of these guys, and whatever one's at 12, we're happy with that guy. Let's get, they took Mario Williams back years ago as the number 1 pick, and that kind of floored people. I think that was the Reggie Bush draft, if memory serves. Everybody thought Bush. Now, Bush turned into a decent player. He wasn't great, but they did go with a defensive end. The problem is, you take a defensive end number 1 overall, like Myles Garrett, he was a guy. They're not changing. They're not changing your franchise, though. Those teams, you might have the best defensive player in the world, and that's just not changing the franchise.
But other than quarterback, what position is?
None. But that's why at number 2, the difference between the quarterback at 2 and 12, you would think. But if they don't like the guy at 2, in other words, they don't like C.J. Stroud, I would imagine, or Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, but then you like him at 12. So that's why whatever they do at 2 changes the complexion of this whole draft, right? Yeah. It just absolutely changes the complexion of the draft. But John's point earlier was that the Texans make a lot of bizarre decisions, and nobody knows what they're up to right now. You would think, hey, there's 4 quarterbacks, 3 might be on the board. We want the best of the 3. No, they're in a position where they might say, we'll take whatever one comes to us. That's not a great way to make a decision.
But you're right. I mean, Mario Williams, that was a good player. I mean, I'd look it up. He's a 2-time All-Pro. But you're right. I mean, the quarterback draft, and we go back to last year, Mike.
They had J.J. Watt in his prime. I mean, how many playoff games they win with him?
J.J. Watt's one of the greatest defensive players of all time. You're right. The quarterbacks have got to be really bad in this era, like last year. And Trayvon Walker is the number 1 overall pick. It's got to be a really bad quarterback class, not for a quarterback to go number 1 overall in the modern game. These teams, though, and you bring up, well, Houston, if they like 3 guys how could you like 3 guys all the same playing that position?
It's like that. Here's a reference for you, Jody Mack. You'll like. You ever watch House Hunters?
No, it's right up there with Pimple Poppers.
Well, the concept is they bring you to 3.
You're watching too much reality television.
It's like
I watch Survivor. That's the extent of my reality television. Anything else, no, thank you. I'll pass. Survivor is still good 20 years later.
Yeah, it's like HGTV or something, and they, the couple, they go and they look at 3 houses, and then they have to decide which one they want to buy. Well, It's like. This situation is I'm visiting 3 quarterbacks, and it's like, this one doesn't have a porch, and I really wanted a porch. That one doesn't have the backyard. I really wanted a backyard. This one, it's a little Cape Cod style, and I want it more modern. And then you have to pick of 3 that you don't really like. The Houston Texans are basically, instead of being the aggressor, saying, that's our guy. We don't want to have to choose between 3
right,
guys.
Yeah, and if I have a GM that comes to me, I'll throw that at both of you. If I have a GM that comes to me as an owner, I got $6 billion laying around, and I buy an NFL team, and I have a GM that says I like these 3 quarterbacks all the same. It doesn't. I don't want that guy to be my GM. Give me an answer.
Right, but
I don't have a problem with that theoretically, but he would just be wrong because CJ Stroud is significantly better than the other 2. I would fire him because he hasn't figured that out, not because he thinks they could all be the same. He can't see the difference between CJ Stroud and Levinson, Robinson. That's why you get your ass out of here, clean out your office.
Well,
we'll validate your parking.
Wouldn't Carolina making a trade to number 1, wouldn't they have to make a trade definitively knowing who they want?
You would think.
There's Johnny Mack. If you want a general manager who should be fired, fire the general manager who trades up the number 1 and says, yeah, but we got to continue to decide who we're going to take. No!
Yeah,
you get your ass out of the building if you don't know who you're trading up for to get the number 1 pick.
Right, you make a trade of that magnitude. You don't just call and say, you know what, we want to be number 1, and then we don't know what we want to do when we get there. You make a trade to number 1 because you're saying, damn it, I want that guy. That's who I have to have. And if that's not the case, something's wrong. You can't go to that spot and then go house shopping. You've got to know the zip code, the job, and who your boss is.
Yeah, that's my point. In 2021, when San Francisco traded up, the thought around the league was they were trading up to get Mac Jones at the time, if you guys remember. And evidently that was true, and they changed their mind after the trade, and they went with Trey Lance, which obviously hasn't worked out.
How far out from the draft did that trade come down, Johnny? You remember?
I don't remember, but it was pretty significantly prior to the draft. And yeah, I mean, I don't get that. In Jody's case, and that's why I was take the names out of it.
Yeah.
Because you like CJ Stroud. Take the names out of it. You just have quarterback A, quarterback B, quarterback C. I don't know of any indication where I'm not saying I don't like this guy better. There's no, I can't even register that 3 quarterbacks would be exactly the same, that I don't care. That at that position, and this is where I give Andy Reid credit, because there's a lot of revisionist history. Kansas City took a lot of heat because Patrick Mahomes wasn't supposed to go that high. And when he did go that, and they gave up a king's ransom, because they like the guy. And they said, we got to go get the guy. That's what I want. And if you don't feel that way about a quarterback, don't take a quarterback because you don't.
I agree with that. These teams are in search of a ghost that doesn't exist, a franchise quarterback. These quarterbacks in the draft, virtually most of them, all can't play. Once in a while, you get a guy that, okay, you hit on that guy. Zach Wilson stinks out loud. You waste a second-round pick on that.
But Patrick Mahomes, come on. The franchise quarterbacks do happen, Mike. You're making it sound like it never happens.
Right, but I'm saying these teams, but Patrick Mahomes, John just said, he was drafted 10th, and people thought that was too high for him. I'm talking about these teams that sell their soul. What the hell were the 49ers thinking? Like, you drafted a guy who played one college game in North Dakota, and are you kidding me? These guys, most times, more than not, you look back at the draft, when you have 4 quarterbacks that go in the first round, 3.5 of them can't play. I mean, really, you get a guy who might be Baker Mayfield. You drafted him number 1 overall. He's a 27th in the league starter, but you don't draft a player like that number 1. But this league is just so incumbent on teams trying to find a quarterback, and they will do anything they can, even if they know that guy has an 80% rate of missing. It's unbelievable to me.
Hold on. I got to ask you, who's a half a quarterback? You said
Baker Mayfield.
4. Who's that?
Baker Mayfield is a half quarterback. Okay. He's a half starter, half backup. You're better if he's your backup. If he's your starter, your team probably is 9-8.
Speaking of the Patrick Mahomes year, that was the year that I always get it mixed up. Ryan Pace went up from number 3 to number 2. He didn't have to, but for some reason he just wanted to.
Took Trubisky.
Get Mitchell Trubisky. He could have stayed at 3 and gotten Mitchell Trubisky.
Horrendous.
We're talking about general managers. That's a fireable offense. The moment you announce that deal, you should be fired.
The guy, actually, I guess it was Virginia McCaskey, should have walked on the steps of the Rocky statue in Philadelphia that year and said, you're fired. That deal right there is a fireable offense on the spot.
I mean, it's bad enough
that you retract the trade. We'd like to retract it if we could.
It's bad enough that you're projecting Mitchell Trubisky, but a lot of people did. That's a lot better than Patrick Mahomes, better than Deshaun Watson. So that's one mistake, but that's not the most glaring mistake. The most glaring is moving up 1 spot with a team that's not going to take a quarterback.
Yeah.
That to me is just.
Well, maybe they thought someone was going to jump them.
Well, yeah,
he got bluffed. Yeah, somebody bluffed him.
Here's the hot take, but I'll say this: the guy, okay, who was supposed to. I love a mock draft. Okay, I'm all in for the mock drafts. I love mock draft season. I know John's mock draft is out today. We'll talk about that on my show later because I love mock drafts. If you went to the way too early mock draft for 2022's draft, the number 1 pick in that draft was going to be Sam Howell. Yeah, he was the guy. Yeah. And guess what? The Commanders took him in like the 5th round, and he'll be the only guy in that draft that can play.
No. You're wrong. And I'm zotzing on the kid's name.
Oh, Brock Purdy. I'm sorry.
Transferred from Oklahoma to South Carolina, and it's going back for another.
Spencer Rattler.
Spencer Rattler was going to be the number 1 draft pick. So your point is accurate. I know the point you're trying to make. If you're talking 11 months out, a lot of shit can happen in 11 months. And Spencer Rattler went from number 1 to not good, had to transfer to South Carolina, where he's not good enough that he's got to go back to school again this year.
Well, that kid was on that stupid show, reality TV you're talking about. He was a reality star on that stupid show. That kid can't play at all. But Hal at North Carolina had a great year. The team fell apart around him. He wasn't nearly as good, and then he kind of fell off the map. But I'm talking about these teams that sell their soul. They have a guy that they actually like and probably can play, and they got him in the 5th round. Now, that's not normal, but my point is, unless you have absolute conviction, and if you're Carolina to make that trade, you have to have conviction, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You would think.
You should.
But
you would think.
We never know. All right, Mikey, we're running late. As always, we love having you on the show. Feel free to text us tomorrow if you're right now. Eagles' first pick at whatever spot it is would be who? You going Paris Johnson?
Well, they stay at 10 and Paris Johnson.
You tell me. Just give me a name.
Paris Johnson at 10, Jalen Carter trade up at 7.
All right, now you got 2. You've eliminated everybody else, but eliminate one of those 2. Which one's going to be?
Jalen Carter. Carter.
Oh,
Carter at 7. All right.
I like it.
I like your Paris Johnson pick. Jalen Carter's not happening. If you change your mind, please text the show tomorrow morning. You know what time we're on. We'll go, oh, by the way, Mike Gill checked in. He's changed his pick, too.
Yeah.
And we will put that out there for
everybody. If anybody's down the shore tomorrow, I will be live at Maynard's in Margate, the world famous for the whole show live.
Yeah.
Is that where you have breakfast with your dad, Maynard?
They do serve breakfast over there, but no, not at Maynard's in Margate. We're doing the show. I'm giving away a trip to an Eagles road game tomorrow.
Ooh, very nice. So stop on by to see Mike Gill. MG, always a pleasure. Thanks, bud.
See you guys.
Mike Gill here with us on Birds 365. All right, quickie timeout. You know what we got to do. Come back. Put a ball in the show.